Sit back down and shut your trap. It's time for
Keeping It Sports with M3.
Are you ready?
Are you ready?
Well, I'll need some beer.
Are you ready?
You have to ask me nicely.
Come on now, don't be bashful.
Are you ready? Are you ready for
The place for the best sports talk and news surrounding each league.
I can prove it with my usual flawless logic.
Hey man, this time I'm gonna do it my way.
What's your name again?
And now, here's our host, M3, Mike Rosansky. Coming to you from Cherry Hill, New Jersey, it's time for Keeping It Sports with M3, powered by the Connect School of Broadcasting. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm, of course, your host, Mike M3 Rosansky, coming to you here on this Monday, the 10th day of August. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're all off to a great start in your day, great start in your week, whatever it is you may be doing at this given time. Thank you all, as always, for taking some time out and checking out the podcast this week, whether you're watching live on YouTube and through social media, or you're listening to the podcast version, which becomes available on Tuesday afternoons. I appreciate any and all support. And remember, as always, you can find all the links for everywhere Keeping It Sports with M3 is available on our Linktree page. You go on the linktree.com, type in M3 Rosansky, and there you'll find all of the links as far as the podcast streaming apps that we're available on, as well as all of my social media accounts. So that's a place you can find the podcast each week. Share it to your friends, anyone who may be interested in hearing someone rant and ramble on about what may be on their mind in the sports world on any given week. Now, I hope most of you had a very good weekend. I tried to have a great weekend. I thought it was going to be a great weekend because I took Saturday off and went to Yankee Stadium for Old Timers Day. Unfortunately, my train got me there late and I missed the introduction ceremony. Didn't get to see the old-time players get introduced, which is always something fun. Good to hear the reactions that some of the all-time greats of this franchise get when they run out onto the field. Some guys seem happier to be there than others, and Nick Swisher is usually the life of the party at this thing, even though he's barely older than me, so not sure how much of an old timer he is, but it's always good to see this event. I'm glad the Yankees do this on a yearly basis. Other teams, unless you're someone like, I don't know, the Rays or the Marlins, who have been around for all of about 5 minutes, and most of your guys just retired or were barely there long enough to have a true attachment to the franchise, I'd advise any franchise in the Major League Baseball to do this. Fans always like to see and reminisce about good times, great times in the history of their franchise. Plus, I hadn't been to Yankee Stadium in a while. I think last time I was there was May 4th, so time to get back out there. I'll tell you, I was planning on going in with some real vitriol, maybe even a poster or two, explaining my dismay toward the Yankees with how they handled the trade deadline last week. Yeah, they did add a couple of bats to this lineup. You even saw Luis Garcia Jr. come through in his first couple of games with some big moments, including a go-ahead home run last week against the Cardinals. He scored the game-winning run on Friday night in their comeback victory against the Atlanta Braves. But as I said, I was not too happy with the way the Yankees handled the trade deadline because I thought they could have and should have done more, especially when it came to upgrading at catcher and upgrading the bullpen. I mean, you watch some of these guys, especially Fernando Cruz, the last several outings, he's running on fumes. Tim Hill, who used to be one of their most trustworthy relievers, has been batting practice for the last month and a half. I'm worried about their usage rate of guys like Hedrick and Blackburn, who have been very much pleasant surprises for this team. And they're relying on so much to go right as far as guys coming back off of the IL, whether it be Rodon coming back some point in the next week and a half and then shifting either Weathers or Warren to the bullpen, or the return of Clark Schmidt at some point in September, or maybe even Luis Heel, or eventually a sighting of Carlos Lagrange. Sometimes relying on guys coming off of the IL to be that upgrade isn't the best choice as far as avoiding the trade deadline, because they still got to get back into a rhythm, got to get back into the wear and tear that is a season. So I thought it would have been better if they went out there, found somebody. It didn't have to be an all-star level reliever, but somebody that could come in and give them 30 to 35 innings over the remainder of this season. Someone that could take some of the workload in the bridge up to closer David Bednar. And even him, you're watching him having a bunch of these outings where he's asked to come in for more than 3 outs. Somebody that would come in and be competent and kind of ease the workload on some of these arms in the bullpen. But the Yankees, whether you want to call it well-timed or you want to say they grew a brain, last Monday night, they finally did the right thing. Something that myself and many Yankee fans had been calling for several weeks when they called up prospect George Lombard Jr. And as we know, prospects, they're suspect until they prove anything at the big league level. But in a very short sample size, you're allowed to dream a little bit if you're a fan. Because what you've seen from George Lombard Jr. so far, I don't know how you can complain about. I don't know how you can't be giddy. I don't know how you can't be excited watching this kid play baseball. The rap on him coming up through the minor leagues is offensively, he usually gets off to slow starts, but then after a couple of weeks, gets his sea legs under him and has things figured out. But defensively is where, from the get-go, you're going to be immediately impressed. Hell, they've been saying since the time he was drafted 3 years ago that he was already playing shortstop at a major league level. But damn, I never expected this from game 1 against the Cardinals last week. He's making plays in the hole that we had not seen anybody, whether it be Volpe, Caballero, even I believe Max Schumann played some time at shortstop this season. None of those guys been capable of making some of the plays and starting some of the double plays that we've seen from George Lombard Jr. so far in a short sample size. And the fact that he's even started to hit a little bit, has a couple of home runs, had a clutch home run late in the game on Saturday to help them build upon their lead. This kid at only 21 years old looks like a player, looks like someone that is going to be here for a long time to come, looks like someone that is mature beyond his years at only 21 years old. Now, it does help being someone that had a father played in the big leagues and is a coach in the big leagues in George Lombard Sr. So he was around the game a lot. He got some of that advanced knowledge, some of that advanced experience that a lot of other kids coming up through the minor leagues to the major leagues don't have. And that's not to say that you have to have a dad that played in the big leagues or was a coach in the big leagues, but it certainly can help. It certainly didn't hinder him and had him ready for the moment upon coming to the big league level. What you hope for as a Yankee fan, what we've gotten in this brief sample size, this brief time that he's been up here, is just a sign of things to come, and that you're not left there with your heart broken, because prospects can break any fan base's heart. We hear about them coming up from the minor leagues, hear about the scouting reports, see some of the numbers that they put up. But you never truly know about a guy until they're under the bright lights, until they go from playing in front of potentially about 8 to 10,000 people on a given night to potentially 40 to 45,000 people, cameras everywhere, the spotlight on them, following every single moment. Some guys can't handle that spotlight. Some guys shake under that spotlight, seemingly look like they forget how to play baseball at times. And we've had our hearts broken by plenty of prospects over the years. I mean, for every Aaron Judge, there's Clint Frazier's that come along. There's the Mason Williams, the Slade Heathcocks, the Oswald Perazzas, those guys that were so hyped but never turned into anything. Or guys that they come upon the scene, look good in the beginning, but then they get injured and it start to take away from some of that prospect shine, such as what you had when you had Miguel Andujar years back. And that's the situation that I feel like we've fallen into now with both Jason Dominguez and Anthony Volpe, who were both sent to the minor leagues after last Monday's game when they were starting to make roster changes to open up spots for Ramos coming here from the Giants, or with Lombard being called up from the minor leagues. They were the guys that lost their roster spots. And for one reason or another, these two, and while they're still young, have not reached the shine that you expected from them. In the case of Jason Dominguez, when he first came up, was it 3 years ago? I thought we had a star on our hands here. I thought we had a guy that you could put behind Judge for the next decade in the lineup, and he was going to bring some thunder to the lineup. And why could you blame me for thinking that? He had 4 home runs in his first week up here, had a cannon for an arm from the outfield, gave you some things during a season in 2023 that was miserable to watch, but gave you some hope moving forward. And after a week, it was all taken from us when he went down with the Tommy John surgery. And since then, he's gotten cups of coffee here and there. Came up for a little bit in 2024, really didn't do much. Was given the opportunity to be the starting left fielder on opening day in 2025, but eventually would lose his starting spot to Trent Grisham and his weird, fluky kind of season. And since then, he's been trying to battle his way back into the lineup, and whether it be his poor defense in left field or inconsistency offensively, he's never been able to grasp those opportunities and be the player that you once hoped he would be. And you hope that this time in the minor leagues. It doesn't hinder his mindset, doesn't hinder his chances of being a good big leaguer at some point. But I'm starting to wonder if those chances are ever going to come here with the Yankees when you consider, even despite his injury, Judge is going to come back at some point, and he's locked up for a long time to come. You're in the first year of a 5-year contract with Cody Bellinger. Spencer Jones in what is now his third cup of coffee with the big league team. Each time we've seen him, he's gotten better, and he's starting to hit here. He's starting to get a little bit more comfortable here. So I'm wondering if Jason Dominguez even has a future here. The same thing applies with Anthony Volpe, and even more so with Anthony Volpe. I think it would be best for him to get the hell out of this area. I know he grew up a Yankee fan. I know he grew up a diehard Derek Jeter fan, is a local kid, but maybe all of that, the spectrum of being a Yankee, ate him up alive. Because this was at one point a top prospect. There's a reason why he was taken in the first round. But even after winning a Gold Glove that he probably shouldn't have as a rookie in 2023, you started to see a steady dip in his performance. I mean, he was never a high on base percentage guy, was always under 300, and that was a big problem I had with him. You saw his defense, even before last year's shoulder injury, take a steep decline downward. He didn't really have the arm to be a true effective shortstop, and it felt like the Yankees were in la-la land with him. They refused to admit the problem that was Anthony Volpe at shortstop, and it got to the point where the fan base turned on him. I feel like, at least coming from me, a lot of it was directed at the organization. I can't speak for some of the trolls on social media, but Volpe just was not able to physically and emotionally recover from that. And now he goes back to the minor leagues where they say he's going to learn and start playing more second base. But you really want him coming back here, even if it's next year as a starting second baseman, where the fan base has fallen in love with the George Lombard Jr. And any time that something potentially goes wrong in the infield, they're going to be looking to blame him. I mean, he's still young. He's still got a chance to be a decent big leaguer. But I think it would be best for him and best for the team if it happened elsewhere. As far as the current team is concerned, they just got done with this gauntlet of a schedule, I guess you want to refer to it as. I mean, nothing's ever truly easy, but they played a stretch. We're going into it. You had 22 consecutive games against teams that were either at or over 500. I know the Pirates have struggled a little bit since we saw them, but the Yankees were able to go 13-9 during that stretch, even despite an offense that has looked hideous. I mean, they're barely scoring 3 runs a game. Some of that run total was helped out by some games against the Pirates and the Cardinals where they really tacked on. Other than that, you were seeing a lot of low-scoring 2-1, 2-0 type victories. They had 4 games during that stretch that they lost where they scored 2 or fewer runs but allowed 3 or less runs. And you look at them, they allowed more runs than they scored in this 22-game stretch, 78-69, and still went 13-9 during that time. And it's because of their pitching staff. And you got to see a little bit of how it could all turn out to be in a potential postseason series this past weekend with your 3 big guns of Fried, Cole, and Schlittler going up against the Atlanta Braves. All 3 of them were great. All 3 of them put on awesome performances. Only one of them came away with a victory, and one of them was very fortunate not to get a loss. because of how poor this offense is. I mean, Cam Slitler yesterday strikes out 11, gives up 1 run over 7 innings, and has nothing to show for it because of how poor this offense is. And yeah, you're without Aaron Judge and Cody Bellinger, but that doesn't mean that you have to tolerate some of the nonsense you're seeing from this lineup. And it's one thing what you're dealing with at catcher. The trade deadline's passed. There's nothing you can really do about that. But you can sure as well stop guaranteeing some of the playing time for certain guys on this team. That's why I thought Friday night was very telling when late in that game, I think it was the 8th inning, Aaron Boone pinch hit for both Trent Grisham and Jazz Chisholm Jr. Something that he's been hesitant to do with Jazz, but we've seen a few times when it comes to Grisham this year. Now, how can you blame them? I don't think any of the nerds in the front office can get mad at him finally holding these two guys who have been kind of amongst that group I refer to as the Brian Cashman guys, finally holding them accountable. I mean, we knew Grisham's season last year was going to turn out to be a fluke. Didn't realize it was going to be this piss poor, but he's been largely an automatic out. And then Jazz Chisholm has never been able to back up his big talk from spring training this past year, which I think most people knew that those were lofty expectations that he could never truly match of having a 50-50 season. But these guys who are both in their walk year, having awful seasons, they should not be guaranteed everyday playing time, especially as this team gets healthy. I'm watching Grisham out there play center field on Saturday. He looks about as slow as Bernie Williams did in the old timers game. And Bernie Williams is damn near like 60 years old? Enough of guaranteeing Trent Grisham center field until Judge and Bellinger come back. Move Grisham to one of the corner outfield spots and play Spencer Jones in center field. Even if Jones cools off with his recent stretch of hitting, you're still going to get a lot more out of him defensively than what you've seen out of Trent Grisham. And I know that things have been kind of slow for him since MLB has seemingly been singling him out. But I would start playing a lot more of Caballero at second base and put the fire to Jazz's ass saying, hey, we got this other guy here that's perfectly capable of playing second base and going to give us much better defense than what we've seen from you at times here. I want to get to a point where this lineup in September, you have Judge in right, Jones in center, Bellinger in left, an infield of whether you want to go Garcia or Goldschmidt at first base any given day, Caballero at second, McMahon at third, Lombard at short. I think that would be your best defensive unit and maybe even your best offensive unit behind this starting rotation. If you ever get the big four of Cole, Schlittler, Fried, and Rodon all together at one time, then that's a team that you can dream about. Then that's a team that you can say, all right, let's go into this postseason and give it all we got and see if this is a good enough squad here. Like I said, you would have liked to seen more things done at the trade deadline, but these are the chips that are presented in front of us right now. With this group as a whole, their best team does not include Grisham or Chisholm in the everyday lineup. And some of these guys need to have their feet held to the fire. Let Boone actually manage this team, put the best guys out there, and not depend things on contracts and feelings, especially when those two guys are pending free agents. A lot more I want to get to over the next about 40 minutes or so here, give you some thoughts on some of the contract extensions given out in the NFL in the last week. A Mets rookie that has come upon the scene that's made a lot of noise recently, mixing some thoughts about both the NBA and the WNBA coming up. So a lot I want to get to here over the remainder of this podcast. Glad you guys could join me once again this week. And like I tell you, each and every single week at this time, please sit back, relax, help put your feet up if you feel like it, and continue keeping it sports with M3.
I'll be back.
Well. Just when you thought could not get any worse for Kawhi Leonard, more and more start coming out of the woodwork here to a point where I don't think he's going to be a Toronto Raptor this coming season. I don't think he's going to be able to run and hide up in Canada from these most recent allegations if they turn out to be true. As we know, for the last year, there's been an investigation done into Kawhi Leonard potentially improperly getting extra payments as a way for the Los Angeles Clippers to circumvent the salary cap. First, it was from this financial group known as Aspiration that Steve Ballmer had previously been involved with even before Kawhi Leonard's time with the Clippers. And now, most recently on his podcast, Pablo Torre Finds Out. Pablo Torre, who's a former ESPN contributor who started this investigation last year, digging all this up, now has come out in his investigation. Someone from another sponsorship group, someone representing Diatronics, that said it was 1,000% a way to circumvent the salary cap when Diatronics had signed Kawhi Leonard to a sponsorship deal, an undisclosed sponsorship agreement worth millions of dollars. This is the same group that designed the Clippers video board inside the Intuit Dome out there in LA, and said that they work with Kawhi Leonard as a way to circumvent the salary cap, funnel him money through the Los Angeles Clippers. This is really damning toward Kawhi, because before it was one thing when you had one sponsorship group that was potentially doing this. But now that you got two in here, now if you're Steve Ballmer, you can't claim any idiocy here. You can't claim any lack of knowledge when you have someone that had such a tight association with the building of your new arena, also funneling money to Kawhi Leonard. For you at least had the backup of saying that you lost $60 million to this investment group. And the co-founder of that, Joseph Sandberg, he's now going to jail for the next 14 years, going to spend time in a federal prison for defunding investors and lenders of well over $200 million. But now with this second one coming out, when the NBA hasn't even finished their investigation into the first one, this is damning on you. This is damning on Kawhi Leonard. Hell, this could be damning on the league in general. I mean, you gotta imagine this is something Adam Silver and the rest of the hierarchy of the NBA can't like hearing, because Who's to say Kawhi Leonard is the only player that has this kind of funding, that is the only player found that these kind of sponsors, these kind of endorsement deals to help him get to a certain location that would kind of work around the salary cap. So this is a Pandora's box that Adam Silver does not want to face, the league does not want to face. And I don't know how in your right mind you could let that trade between the Clippers and the Toronto Raptors go through now. Hell, if you're the Toronto Raptors, why would you want to deal with this? At first, you thought you were making a trade for a player that created such a legendary moment in your franchise, that gave you guys your one championship in franchise history, bringing him back at a time where you look like you're a team ready to take that next step, building a squad around Scotty Barnes. Now you gotta be like, time out, Clippers, this is not what we signed up for. Why should we face any repercussions? This is your problem to deal with. You keep him, we'll keep the players and trade asset that we were willing to send your way, and we'll go about our business. Does kind of hinder their off season, because their off season was built entirely around making this trade. They damn sure don't want to deal with this nonsense. And if you're the league, there's no way that you can come away with this without a heavy suspension toward both Kawhi Leonard and Steve Ballmer. And neither one of these guys, if this comes out to be true and they're found guilty of all this, neither one of these guys should see the light of day when it comes to the NBA at all during the 2026-2027 season and postseason. At minimum, it should be at least a 1-year ban for both of these guys, because you need to send the message toward both of them, players around the league who could potentially be thinking about pulling some kind of shenanigans like this, and any players in the future, and owners as well, that this will not be tolerated. One of the Raptors' Eastern Conference competitors, the Philadelphia 76ers, have been very much a team of interest during this off season. They've made more noise, more headlines than anybody else in the month of July, starting with the trade of bringing in Jaylen Brown from the Boston Celtics, and then closing out the month with acquiring LeBron James through free agency after he ended his time with the Los Angeles Lakers. Adding to a squad that already had Tyrese Maxey, already had BJ Edgecombe, hopes to get something out of Joel Embiid, and surprised everybody by coming back from 3-1 against the Celtics in the first round of the NBA playoffs. What we had long been waiting to hear from, though, is Jaylen Brown with his introductory press conference with the 76ers to talk about his surprise when it comes to not just being traded, but being traded to the Sixers, reaction, and everything. And I thought the press conference went exactly how you would expect it to be from Jaylen Brown. And yes, he had the headlines after they lost to the 76ers in the first round, when he went on his Twitch stream the next day and was referring to this as his favorite season of his career, essentially writing his ticket out of Boston. And it was clear he was never the favorite son of the Boston Celtics. They always held Jason Tatum to a higher pedestal than him, even despite him being the finals MVP of their most recent championship. Well, he didn't say anything too controversial about joining the 76ers, other than learning from his teammates and how welcoming his teammates in the organization have been. The mic drop, pipe bomb, whatever you want to refer to it, moment of the press conference came toward the end when he was talking about how he's moving on, how people wanted him to elaborate on comments he made on a recent Twitch stream when he said he felt a lack of respect from the Celtics with how they handled communications during the trade. And I'm sure one of these days we'll find out the full story. I mean, hell, to this day, we still don't even know what the full story was of Bill Belichick benching Malcolm Butler in the Super Bowl against the Eagles. And I'm sure a story like that will eventually come out in some ESPN 30 for 30, just like I'm sure if the Celtics or the 76ers have any championship level success after this move is made, you'll hear more noise come out from one side or the other. But the real pipe bomb here was at the end when he talked about his relationship with Jason Tatum. Brown said, quote, "The two have not really spoken since the trade, but on my end, it's nothing but respect." And that's what's going to happen when you have somebody that you win a championship with. Let's face it, he doesn't want to come out and say it, but Jaylen Brown could not stand Jason Tatum. Jaylen Brown could not stand the fact that Jason Tatum had all of the love affair from the organization, had everyone willing to back him through all of their years together in Boston, and he never got the true appreciation from the Celtics organization, and maybe even some Celtic fans, that Jason Tatum did, even though we saw plenty of times where Jason Tatum came up small in big spots. He was not great in that finals. Jaylen Brown was the lead force in them winning that championship. And he was amongst the biggest reasons before he popped his Achilles why they lost that series to the Knicks last year when they had 20-point leads in games 1 and 2 at home and choked those games away. I'm sure Jaylen Brown wasn't 100% on board with the analytically driven mindset that the Boston Celtics have. But now he has a chance to go to a team that really wanted him, that was willing to give up draft picks, that was willing to move off of a bad contract and make a deal with an in-conference opponent to bring in somebody at a time where you have young guards ready to take over the lead spot on this team. At a time where you don't know what on a day in, day out basis you're going to get from Joel Embiid. And at a time where you're bringing in LeBron James, where you're hoping that he has got one last championship burst in him. Let's face it, if you're a Sixers fan, it's been a long damn time since you have even reached the finals, and let alone win a championship. That was over 40 years ago. But as far as even getting to the finals, we're talking over a quarter century ago since Allen Iverson dragged that team of misfits kicking and screaming to the NBA finals to face the Lakers, and was a miracle they even got one victory out of that group. This is the best squad you've put together since that time. And all of those guys on this team, with the exception of LeBron James, are in their physical prime. And yet Joel Embiid is constantly dealing with injuries, but he's still young enough to be a factor on this team. It's going to take some time for them to gel together. It's going to take some time for everybody to kind of figure out their roles within this. It's going to take some time to figure out how you're going to divvy up things when it comes to your bench and solidify the roles on that squad of things as well. The 76ers team has a chance on paper to be something very, very special this coming season. Now, I wouldn't put them as the favorite over the Knicks because the Knicks have a couple of years of this group playing together. The Knicks are the reigning defending NBA champions for a reason. But I look around the rest of the East. The trade for Kawhi with the Raptors may or may not happen. The Celtics have gotten worse and older this year with moving on from Jaylen Brown for 36, going to be 37-year-old Paul George. The Cavaliers really haven't done anything to upgrade their chances. And now you've got this nonsense, this off-the-court nonsense with James Harden. It's all right there for the 76ers to be a force in the Eastern Conference and be that team for the Knicks to contend with when it comes to getting back to the NBA Finals. They still got to go out there and prove it on the court. And there's no guarantees in life. This is not like with the Golden State Warriors when they added Kevin Durant and they already had a championship in the bag. They added Durant to the squad and then all of a sudden they took off and were just unstoppable for the next couple of years. That's why I know he has a tendency to be that guy on social media, but the nonsense that Durant's been posting about the 76ers over the last couple of weeks on Instagram is just that, a bunch of nonsense. Yeah, it's one thing to put a bunch of star players, a bunch of all-star caliber players together, but they still got to be able to gel together. They still got to be able to share the basketball. Then last I checked, there's only one basketball out there. He could talk about all he wants. They've got 4 25-point scorers on the same team. That doesn't mean they're all going to score 25 on any given night. See, when you had that Warriors team, they all already fit into certain roles. You were just upgrading from Harrison Barnes to one of the greatest of all time in Kevin Durant. And the nerve of Kevin Durant, I'm not sure why he's got to be taking shots at Klay Thompson on social media and Draymond Green talking about Klay ain't even close as far as being an MVP caliber player, was never an MVP candidate, bringing up that Draymond was only 14, 7, and 6 per game. Like, yeah, Draymond was never about the stats when it came to that group. He was that guy that you had to watch the game to truly understand and truly respect how good he was, because his impact on the game, especially defensively, and be able to play 5 different positions on defense, went well beyond the numbers. And you knew he was going to be out there every given night. Before Klay dealt with injuries, you knew he was going to be out there every given night. You can't say that about Joel Embiid. You can't say that at this point of his career about LeBron James. So I'm not sure if there's some kind of hidden agenda here behind Kevin Durant and his nonsense. He comes across as incredibly bitter, incredibly salty for no real reason. Just be glad that you've got 2 championships with your super team, something that the 76ers hope to do in the next coming years while they still have LeBron James.
I'll be back.
I want to be a true supporter of the WNBA. I want to fully wrap my arms around that league and be excited about the WNBA. But it seems like every 5 minutes, they're in the news for all of the wrong reasons, or at least making headlines for reasons other than the game. Just like all of the men's sports out there, NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL, they're living, breathing human beings. Me as a man, I will never understand fully some of the difficulties female athletes have to go through. I can just sit here, try to listen, try to learn as much knowledge as possible when it comes to the difficulties they go through, how they're held to not as much of a standard, or not given as much respect, maybe I should say, as the men's sports are given, and they're trying to battle and grind their way to a point where they are held to that precious hierarchy that these other leagues are. But the last seemingly 3 weeks that they've had, I feel like that they wish they could go back in a time machine and try to turn it to where we're only talking about basketball with the WNBA and not things that either happen on the court or off the court that aren't about the actual game. I mean, first off, and this is something that the league could have avoided, what the hell's with this scheduling that you gave to the Las Vegas Aces? How the hell are you going to look yourselves in the eye and say that you gave them a fair opportunity at being competitive during their recent stretch, where they played 5 road games in a span of 9 days, including most recently over the weekend, they played 2 games seemingly within a 24-hour span. They played in Minnesota on Saturday afternoon and then went on to play the Liberty on ABC at 12:30 East Coast time on in New York City, because the network was showing the Little League softball championship game afterwards. So they had to push the start time of this game up to 12:30 rather than what would be your typical late afternoon, 3:30, 4 o'clock game start. Now, how's that fair? And you can't blame Becky Hammon then for resting her 3 best players, Ajay Wilson, Chelsea Green, and Jackie Young, from this game, and don't be surprised that you had a blowout, a non-competitive game on your hands here when you gave them such an unfair scheduling thing here. I'm totally on her side with this. She comes from the Greg Popovich coaching tree where, hey, the health of her players is the most important thing, as she said after the game. She wants the health and safety of her players first, no matter where they end up in the standings. And how is it that you scheduled this team, like I said, 5 games in 9 days, when earlier this season, just about a month ago, they went from July 12th to July 20th. That's an 8-day span without 1 game. You got to have a little bit of consistency. You got to realize the errors of your ways. You want to have the shine and spotlight on your league for the right reasons. And this is not the right reasons. This, if anything, is bringing a dark light on your product, because you're not putting the best version of your product out there with one of your better teams in the league saying, hey, you know what? Our star players, They're not playing 2 games within a 24-hour span here. So we're going to hold them out. And the players that did play in that game, you got to believe they were dead ass exhausted after playing a tough game against Minnesota the day before. And now they got to come back and play in New York less than 24 hours later. Didn't get to their hotel until nearly 10 p.m. The night before after a over 1,200-mile trip from Minnesota. That's just a brutal scheduling decision, not fair to the Aces, and you got to do better if you're the WNBA. And then you've got the situation that surrounds one of your young players in Sophie Cunningham. It's one thing what happened on Saturday when Dejan Carrington, she commits that flagrant foul against Cunningham early in the first quarter of the Skies game against the Indiana Fever. And it doesn't matter what league you're playing in. NBA, WNBA, Rucker Park League, college basketball. That's a flagrant 2 and an ejection and an unnecessary shot there. Now, for some backstory here, Carrington is a player that goes all out on every play. And we've seen her frequently over her career try to go up and contest to open layups like that. This just happened to be one of those times where she came across the face and neck region, and it led to Cunningham taking a shot that sent her to the floor. She got up rather pissed off, which I don't blame her for. But at the same time, I don't think that was Carrington's intent on the play. I don't think it was her intent to try to injure Cunningham, but she's a hard-nosed player. She's going to go out there and play her game and try to be a defensive stopper. But what really looks bad is 2 things. One, Carrington going on social media minutes after she was ejected and posting on her Threads account, white privilege at Indiana Fever. And that's not a white privilege thing. If Cunningham had done the same thing to you and there was no ejection or she wasn't suspended or punished in any way, then you have an argument. But if she does the same thing to you, everyone's up in arms saying, oh, that's a dirty play, ejector from the game, that's unnecessary, just as they were saying when you got ejected. So that should not be thrown out there on social media. But then what makes things even worse, after the game during the post-game press conference, when Carrington was defended by Cunningham's own head coach in Stephanie White, don't you got to come out there in anger and defense of your player? Yeah, you won the game, but I would be outraged if I saw that play. Even with the amount of time that passed in between the ejection and the post-game press conference, I'd be like, this is unacceptable. My player was getting targeted at a time where there's a lot of both public support and public backlash coming in the direction of Sophie Cunningham. And if you haven't been paying attention, if you've had your head under a rock, Sophie Cunningham was featured heavily in an article that ESPN.com did back on July 21st, where she said she supported restricting transgender girls and women from girls and women's sports. And that's always been a very delicate issue. That's always been a very delicate subject to discuss. Well, I'm all for the rights of the LGBTQ community and the rights of transgender people, both male and female. Like, it's very difficult discussion when it comes to should they be allowed to play in whatever sports league of their choosing, depending on which gender they identify as. And I almost think that's one of those things that you got to take on a case-by-case basis. Like, remember years back we had that transgender athlete swimming with the women in the Olympics or one of these swimming competitions, and this person had a clear physical advantage over all of the natural-born women in the competition. So I hope that these actions by Carrington weren't a attempt or a shot at Cunningham for her comments in this. I respect her rights to come out with comments against transgender girls and women playing in girls and women's sports. I also respect the rights of those who have been out there up in arms in protest both for and against Cunningham in this subject. It's a very touchy subject. It's something that, as I said, I don't know if there's one true correct answer here. What I also don't like is, let's face it, the clear joke that's being made out of this touchy subject by Enes Kanter and Royce White, both former NBA players who have come out with these videos on social media over the weekend suggesting that they're going to attempt to enter the 2027 WNBA draft. Anyone who's taking that seriously, get your head out of the clouds. These are just a couple of assholes that are trying to make their names relevant, who haven't been relevant, especially in the case of Royce White, since they were out of the NBA, and think it's funny to set up makeshift studios with cameras around them, saying that they're going to try to get into the WNBA next year. And these guys just want to bring attention upon themselves, and really they're winning at that by anyone giving their commentary any form of time of day, any form of spotlight. Like I said before, the WNBA, I want to respect their league. I want to acknowledge their league for the great athletes that they have in it. But a lot of the time, it feels like they're brought into the headlines for all of the wrong reasons. Rather than a great game taking place, it takes either a cheap shot or flagrant foul in a game, or stupidity by the league's part in scheduling things for them to grasp and garner any headlines. And I don't think that for a league that's trying to get its footing in society and even after 30 years still develop some respect and credibility behind them, I don't think this is the kind of attention that you really want.
I'll be back.
Now, as many of you may know, August is my favorite month of the year. By a personal standpoint, because it's my birthday coming up in a little less than 3 weeks. Can't believe I'm about to turn 38 years old. I still have very much of a young soul because I don't feel old in any way possible. And if you look up close to me, you'll see a few unfortunate gray hairs in my beard. But I try not to be old man, get off my lawn when it comes to any of my takes, whether it be in sports or in life. But at the same time, I do point out when I think someone's a little bit tone deaf, when someone needs to read the room, and want people to enjoy the sports world for what it is and have fun with it. Because at the end of the day, it's a small part of our day in, day out routine. And it's there to provide us a break, a kind of respite for the difficulty that life can be. So when you see something like what we saw last week with the major league debut of Mets reliever Jefry Yan, it's interesting. It's something that we've never seen before and something that you wonder if it has any staying power. And what I'm talking about here, in case you haven't been paying attention, Jefry Yan last week was amongst those that was called up to the big leagues for the first time, as the Mets had a flurry of roster moves to make the day after the trade deadline. They traded 8 players off their team and called up 8 new guys to the roster when it came to continuing their series against the Cleveland Guardians. They brought up Yan, who had been pitching somewhat well at their AAA level as of late. He made his big league debut and kind of had his Hello America moment. Has been kind of a viral sensation when he came in the 6th inning, struck out pinch hitter Angel Martinez on a slider, and did this leap into the air that included him slapping his knee and dropping down to one knee with his arms over his head. The only thing is, that wasn't the final out of the inning. And doing a little bit more research, he, throughout his minor league career, did this celebration after every strikeout, including there's video out there where he struck out the side in a spring training game with the Mets earlier this year and did this after each one of the strikeouts. As the inning would go on, the Guardians loaded the bases against him with 2 hits and a walk. He was able to get out of it without giving up a run. Also had another strikeout in there that he did the celebration with afterwards, and then got out of the inning with an inning-ending grounder. This is a guy that has a very interesting story to him, as he first signed on as an international free agent when he was 16 years old with the Los Angeles Angels at Anaheim back in 2013. And from there, his journey took an interesting route. In 2016, he had Tommy John surgery. Then he went about a 4-year span without being in any professional baseball league's affiliate, spent time away as a roofer before eventually signing a minor league deal with the Marlins in 2021. Spent 3 years in their affiliate before going to Japan for the Seibu Lions of the Nippon Professional Baseball League. Then signed on with the Rockies, pitched for their AAA affiliate at the start of 2025 before being released and signing with the Mets about a year ago at this time, and was finally added to their 40-man roster just about a month ago, and now gets his first crack at the big leagues. We've never seen something like this before. We've seen he has legit stuff. He throws over 100 miles an hour, but we've never seen someone who celebrates after every strikeout they get. We've seen guys like, I remember back in the day, Jabba Chamberlain was heavily criticized at times for his celebrations after inning-ending strikeouts. But we've never seen a guy like this come along where he celebrates after every single strikeout. My question's going to be, because he's going to get hit at some point. There are guys that have thrown harder than him. You want to talk about Randy Johnson, Aroldis Chapman, Joel Zumaya, hell, nowadays with the Miz. All of those guys throw even harder than this guy does. And they had that hello, welcome to the big leagues moment where they were hit around. My question's going to be, when that moment does happen, say he comes in with the runners on, 1 out in an inning, gives up a 3-run homer, and then strikes someone out right after it. Is he still going to do the celebration? Is he going to be tone deaf, or is he going to eventually have that be aware of who you are kind of thing, read the room kind of moment? So that's going to be something interesting to watch. I'm not going to be negative toward this because, listen, the Mets have had too much to be negative about this season. It's been a dreadful, awful year. So if they can have something to kind of be goofy about, something that put some shine on their season and feel good about going forward, go ahead. But I don't know, it's just weird. Like, I have no negative or positive reaction toward it. I will say this, his hamstrings must be very, very strong. The fact that he has not pulled the groin or pulled the hamstring, the fact that he's constantly doing the splits in between pitches. Now, we're getting very, very close here, folks. We are just about a month away from the NFL season getting started. 30 days, that is Wednesday, September 9th, when the Seattle Seahawks get the season kicked off against the New England Patriots. I know we don't have to hear about preseason proclamations, don't have to hear about preseason workouts, training camp workouts anymore. We could just celebrate and enjoy football for what it is, and that's essentially 17 holidays in a row. I mean, Monday or Thursday night, if your team's playing on that given night, or in this case, a Wednesday night. But that's what football brings us. That's the excitement and enjoyment that football installs in our life for a 6-month period every year. But there is one thing that's gone on during this preseason, or should we say training camp time, as most of these teams haven't even begun the preseason. I know the Cardinals and the Panthers played the Hall of Fame game the other night, but we're going to get the preseason games underway this coming weekend. The one thing that has made me happy is the respect that is being paid to the running back position once again. For a long time, these teams were treating these guys like, oh, we'll just chew them up, spit them out. We don't have to pay them big deals because they're going to be worn out by the time they reach 27, 28, 29, 30, whatever year you want to consider them done by. These guys are not going to have as long of a lifespan in this sport as, say, would a wide receiver or a quarterback have. And in a lot of cases, that's true. I mean, we saw Todd Gurley, after getting his big payday, he start to have a heavy decline. We saw in the case of other big bruiser running backs, they didn't have a long lifespan. That's why I get so much on the case of a guy like Cam Scatterbo, with him doing all of the nonsense with backflips at Fanatics Fest, or at that softball event he was at earlier this summer, or a month after dislocating his ankle last year, he's getting involved with shenanigans at a WWE event. Like, dude, you're a 4th-round draft pick. You really don't have a long shelf life in this league and have to protect yourself more. Those kind of bruisers you concern yourself about. But I think the league forgot that you do have some real, true elite athletes at the running back position that are quicker, faster, and more elusive than we've ever seen before, that have been able to protect themselves and show that they're in this for the long grind, the long wear and tear that an NFL season and an NFL career can be. In recent years, you've seen the big paydays that have been thrown the ways of Saquon Barkley and Christian McCaffrey. And then this past offseason, you saw 4 more running backs get those big paydays, whether it be my guy Breece Hall, or in the last week, guys like Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Jonathan Taylor all ink up big deals to remain with their current squads. Hell, within a 48-hour span of each other, Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs were both setting new records with the contracts that they were given. Bijan getting $51 million guaranteed at $22.2 million per year. And then Jahmyr Gibbs, just a few short hours later, signs a 3-year deal that will guarantee him $51.5 million, could be worth up to $75.75 million, and is even dwarfing the deal that Bijan just got. You see the Colts giving a 2-year deal to Jonathan Taylor after the hellacious workhorse season he had last year, bouncing back after some injury concerns that he had in the previous seasons to prove that he is a durable running back. So these guys who are great, remarkable athletes are getting paid and rewarded for the work that they're doing. They're never going to get paid on the same level as the quarterback, even though they go through more wear and tear than QBs do, with the fact that the league is overly protective of the quarterback these days. But they deserve the big payday. They deserve to be rewarded for their sacrifice, for their heart, their intensity, for the pounding that they take, and showing that the running back position is not just a fly-by-night position, not just something that you can continually chew out. I mean, we've seen some guys that come along and are flashes in the pan and have a great year out of college, and then you never hear from them again, or they latch on with a team as an unrestricted free agent, have one big season, and then they're gone. Like, remember Peyton Hillis once upon a time? But these guys have here, whether you want to talk about Barkley, McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, all of these guys have stood the test of time, have shown the durability to be true workhorses at their position, and have shown that they're not just exclusively running backs. They can be pass catchers out of the backfield, that they can be true all-around offensive threats on the football field. And I love the fact that they're getting rewarded. Hell, I love the fact that we're talking about football here, folks. We're getting closer and closer. Just 30 more days till we kick the ball off. And then we can start being concerned about the actual game action rather than the nonsense that surrounds the sport. And that, my friends, was Keeping It Sports with M3 for Monday, August 10th, 2026. Everyone, please have a great night. Have a fun, safe, happy, healthy week. Remember, you get one life, folks, so you might as well try to live it up to the fullest. And I'll talk to you guys again, same time, next week. Until then, peace.
We have to go. Good night, everybody. I have had enough of you. Thank you for all the fun. Thank you. Hey, shut up, will ya?
I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear you. I don't want to smell you. Now leave. I'll be back.